Our first and only speaker today is Mark Dudley. Mark is speaking from the manual called Speeches by Management, which is an advanced manual. It's project number 1, The Briefing, and the title is Your Responsibilities as a Club Officer. Timer, you would know that it's 3 to 5 minutes for part 1 and 2 to 3 minutes for part 2.
Right.
Okay. Since the new term for the officers began in January, Mark feels it would be good to briefly review the responsibilities of the officers. He also thinks it would be good for the Toastmasters that are not currently serving as officers to know which officer has what responsibility. At the conclusion of the presentation, there will be a Q&A session. You are encouraged to ask questions about the responsibilities of the officers mentioned during the presentation or the offices that were not mentioned during the presentation. Please help me welcome Mark Dudley, our president.
Fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests, for you club officers, I have a question for you. Do you know what your responsibilities are as an officer?
I do.
Okay. As mentioned in my introduction, I feel like since our term just begun, that it would be good to briefly review the responsibilities of a few of the officers. Because of the constraints in time, I will not be able to go in depth into the responsibilities of all officers. Every club member, or club officer serves on the executive committee. This executive committee oversees and manages the affairs of the club. Our executive committee meets the first Thursday of every month through Google Hangout. The president is the chair of this executive committee. He or she is also the chief executive officer and club cheerleader. He or she presides at all meetings, and in conjunction with other club officers, also guides us through the Distinguished Club program. As far as being a cheerleader, he or she recognizes club members as they complete their manuals and receive the various awards from Toastmasters International. The VP of Education, who in my opinion has the hardest job, which is Bruce, he creates and manages the schedule, ideally distributing it 3 weeks in advance. He is also the educational program expert. He or she is to orient new members on the educational programs of Toastmasters International, and also to continuously remind continuing members of the awards they can receive after your competent communication and your competent leader manual is complete. He also oversees the club speech contest, as we all know is coming up next week. The VP of Membership is the club's top recruiter. He encourages members to participate in the various membership building contests that Toastmasters hold throughout the year. He or she also oversees the guest to member process and conducts an induction ceremony when a new member does join us. The VP of Public Relations is our link to the outside world. Shawnee is our VP of Public Relations. And how she accomplishes this job is she makes sure our dates and times of our meetings are up to date in our various places, like Toastmasters International's website, our own website, and the Argus Observer, or anywhere else where we post it. She also lets the media know when our club does something newsworthy, like host the area speech contest, or the speech craft that we held last year, or when one of our members excel at the contest and win several awards like Sue did last year. She also She can do this by letting the news know by press releases or brochures. Because of the constraints in time, I've only been able to cover a few of the responsibilities that our officers hold. And I've only been able to review a few of the officers' positions. For those of you that are not club officers yet, I encourage you to think about it. We hold elections every 6 months. For those of you that are club officers, I'd encourage you to get your leadership handbook out and read over your responsibilities as well as the responsibilities of your fellow club officers. This is also available on Toastmasters International website in PDF, I believe. I want to remind all club officers and Toastmasters that are not club officers that serving as a club officer, you're not only contributing to the success of this club, but you are also getting hands-on, practical leadership experience that will benefit you in other aspects of your life. That is the closing of my remarks, and we will now start the question and answer. As soon as she's got the timer set.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any questions?
Mark, how do the officers learn what their responsibilities are?
How will they?
How do they?
How do they? They can turn to this manual, or they can, most of the officers are still with the club, so they can pull from their experience, pull what they've found successful and what they didn't find successful, so they're not trying to reinvent the wheel, and they can tap into our area, because our club is part of an area as well that holds a couple other Toastmaster clubs. Reach out to their presidents or their VPs and find out what's working in their area and what's not. And also, we have TLI after each election, so you can attend that, and they usually have meetings that deal with the topic that deals with that club officer.
What does TLI mean?
You get it, Vicky. Toastmasters Leadership International Institute. Yep. Okay. Any other questions?
Mark, then I attended the leadership in Boise, and as Sergeant of Arms, I went to that particular section, and it appeared to me that you can kind of structure some of the positions to do. I mean, some clubs have different ideas of what that person will do. Maybe more or less responsibility than the other club.
Mm-hmm.
Is that acceptable? It appears to be that there's kind of a difference a little bit in different clubs.
Yeah, I think some things we can vote on as a club. I know in some clubs that may be a little bit smaller, the VP of Public Relations and the VP of Membership may be the same person. At a TLI I attended a while ago, it was the person was serving as both Public Relations and Membership. I know that one class that Nancy attended, they actually took the assigning of mentors they suggested taking the assigning of mentors away from the VP of Education and assigning it to that responsibility to the VP of Membership. So I think some things we can vote on as a club, can't we?
Yes. The executive committee can determine and re-establish responsibilities. Also, usually I would say the treasurer and the secretary are the same person.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen that too. The secretary and treasurer are the same person. Any other questions? Comments?
I don't really know enough to ask questions. However, I was just wondering if there are any acrimonious issues that come forward. How would you deal with it?
And how would I deal with it? I'm not sure at this point. I'm fairly new at this job, so I haven't had to deal with it in this environment. Of course, I have had to deal with it in work, but I haven't had to deal with it in this environment. So I'd probably lean on my mentor, which is Bruce here. He's been a long time Toastmaster, so he has a lot more knowledge than I have, and he has has seen a lot of things, so I turn to him before I take any action. I see that our red light is on, so that means my time is up. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for not being so acrimonious.
Thank you, Mark.